Welcome back. You're watching Canadian Innovators. Joining me today is Georganne Burke, Senior Vice President of Pathwaygroup, and we're discussing the Ontario election. And before we went to break, Georganne, we were talking about that the opposition wasn't that strong, and I have to agree with you there. Georganne, many of the supporters of Ford Nation were absolutely furious at being the most locked down jurisdiction in North America and the vaccine mandates after we were promised that they wouldn't bring them in. So let's look in the review mirror. How do you think they handled the pandemic?
So it's no secret to anyone, including the Ford government, that I was very unhappy with the way this was done. I probably am one of those Ford Nation people that's very unhappy with it. I was a big supporter of Doug's. I wanted to see him be the leader, mostly because I believe that he was the kind of guy that wouldn't do this kind of stuff. But he seemed to fall into the trap of reading the polls and deciding that there were people who wanted these lockdowns. I don't know who they were talking to. I'm not aware of anybody who wanted it. I know that people went along with it for a while because they weren't sure of what was happening with COVID. But when they saw that kids didn't really get sick, that it was mostly the elderly or people with underlying health conditions that were at high risk, I think they had a hard time understanding why they insisted on these draconian measures which they put forward. And I'm not so sure that the big gap in the vote, that big gap that we talked about in the last segment between who voted and who didn't, isn't largely because people said to themselves, Tweedledum, Tweedledee. I don't know how these guys are any different from each other. They all are talking about locking us down. They all have talked about it in the past. They all would have done and did the same things. So I think that's a huge problem. And I do believe that it was a factor in the people not going to the polls more than people going to the polls.
And there certainly were people that decided they were just going to sit this one out, and you saw that reflected in the results. Yeah. And people were livid on having big box stores open and small businesses shut down. And anyone that traveled outside of the country saw it was a different world in the United States. And I think that came back to haunt voter turnout. We're going to play a little bit of Doug Ford's election speech and get your comments, Georganne.
If you've had to worry about your job at the local auto plant, I want you to know we're investing in the future of Ontario's auto sector. If you're a student who wants to work in the tech sector, we will have a job waiting for you. If you're a newcomer with a degree who can't get a job in your field, we'll make sure you can get credentials you need. This is what we're working for. This is what the Ontario dream is all about. And my promise to you, you have my word, that every single day I will get up and I will get to work. And I will do everything in my power to deliver on this dream. Because tonight's victory, it isn't about me, it isn't about the party. This victory belongs to every worker who knows that they deserve better. It belongs to every family who knows that they can dream bigger. But most of all, this victory belongs to each and every one of you.
Georganne, your thoughts on that speech?
I think it's very nice that he talks about the auto sector and the tech sector. What about the small businesses that have been destroyed over the past 2 years, literally decimated? The tourism industry, the hospitality industry, the small neighborhood mom and pop stores, the small little clothing stores that people used to love to frequent, who were not allowed to have more than 2 people in the store at a time, masked up and socially distanced, while you could go to Walmart. As a matter of fact, I remember a phone call one morning with my company, and one of our members of our company was at Walmart actually doing some pre-Christmas shopping. And he said it was like cheek to jowl. And this was December of 2020. It was cheek to jowl. People were on top of each other. Those stores were open, and all of the little stores were forced to be closed. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's very nice that they want to rebuild and want to do all these things, but they have a lot to make up for. A lot of destruction has happened over the past 2.5 years. And a lot of people have lost everything. People have lost their homes, they've lost their savings, they've lost their businesses. And there is not enough money that the government can put up to fix this.
So do you think, we just have about 20 seconds left, are they going to get back to their original mandate, or are they going to continue on the same line? And we just have about 15 seconds.
I will hope they do. I honestly hope they do, because the original mandate was one that I could live with. I just saw them stray, and I hope that changes.
I do too. We're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to hear more from Georganne. Don't go away.